apologise on behalf of Cardiff Trades Council that the proper speaker system, which should have been here, isn't working. We've got one that is working at the end for the second half of the rally, but not for here. But never mind, because if we're going to achieve socialism, we're going to need more than just the barriers of a speaker system not working.
Yeah, go on.
Think of our brothers in the 19th century. They didn't even have what we've got now. Comrades, welcome to the March and Rally, to the great tradition of the May Day March and Rally. It's now 12 months since the trade union movement decided to flex its muscles and show to this corrupt Tory government that we are not going to stand idly by while they tear up our terms and conditions and try and cut us off from pay. What began as the summer of discontent became the winter of steel. Just this week, 4.5 million people are still taking industrial action. That's the RCN, and can we give a huge round of support, please, to the nurses from the RCN who have defied their union recommendation and in England are still determined to stay out and have rejected the pay offer. They're joined by our brothers in my union this week in the PCS and also, of course, by the NEU in England. Now, it is true, some have settled at the present time, some a bit more favourable than others. That's the way things sometimes go. But the message we got is very, very simple. What's happening with the trade union movement is building for the future. Because while inflation is at 12%, food inflation, by the way, is 19%. For some people, you have a choice. Do you heat the cooker or do you put on the radiator? It's very, very simple. As long as inflation is like that, then what we're being offered at the present time just isn't good enough. And in fact, we will continue to struggle. And these present struggles are not the end of it. It's the beginning. Because in the last year, the TUC has reported that 5,000 new, that's just in one union, I believe, the NEU, 5,000 new reps have been added to the fighting union. Every union is going to be stronger next year than they are this year, because those battles are not gone away. And this fight really is all about, because this government, quite frankly, can't run a bar, let alone run the economy. For 2 decades, we've had disastrous pay freezes. Then we had the pandemic. And then, my God, do you remember the Mad Hatter's Tea Party? Truss? Remember her? Yeah. Now it's Sunak, but they're all the same. They're all telling us it's no pay rises, no jam, not for the next year, not the next 2 years, the next 10 years is what they're telling the labour and trade union movement. We're not actually going to be having it. And at this stage as well, I just want to pay huge tribute, first of all, to all the workers, all the unions that come out in strike this year and will continue to do so. Can I make a special tribute, please, to the postal workers, who I think have endured the most vicious management that you could think possible. What they have gone through is an absolute disgrace to the so-called 21st century. And as Jason said, they're in a difficult position. There are some concessions, but they've still got 400 members suspended or on strike. And we say that's an absolute scandal that shouldn't be happening. And let's give a round of applause to the huge remnant of the postal workers. And the second tribute I think we have to make at this meeting is to those nurses who have bravely defied their union recommendations and are staying out in England at the present time. And those nurses understand this isn't just about pay, this is about the future of the NHS. Our NHS is on life support. Life support. It's estimated now 300 to 400 people are dying every week, not because of winter, not because of the issue of older people and whatever, but because the emergency care cannot cope. That is another new norm they think we are going to endure. Add to the norm of the 8 a.m. phone nonsense. The fact that A&Es look like campsites. The fact you have to wait hours for a hospital for an ambulance to turn up. Britain has got the lowest number of beds of anywhere in Western Europe, and yet all those beds can't be utilised because of the breakdown in emergency services and the thousands of nurses that are leaving. We should be saying, as a trade union movement, get rid of the privateers in the National Health Service.
Hooray! Hooray!
Bring them back into public ownership. Let's have a democratic control of the NHS, and let's make it service with huge investment for the future, because we are proud of the NHS and we are not going to allow the Tories to destroy it. Just in finishing, comrades, I want to say this, is that now it's, as I said, we're now entering another winter. And summer first, of course. What about that? Spring. The next thing on our issue, I think we have to be aware of what the Tories are trying to do with the new anti-trade union laws. And if they push these through, we as a trade union have to be organised. We have to demand now that the TUC, if they push these through, begin preparations for mass demonstrations and a general strike. A 24-hour general strike, at least to start with. Because I tell you this, the hypocrisy in these new emergency service laws are ridiculous. It means fire workers, health workers, it means bus drivers, train drivers. They could be forced under this provision to scab against their own members. That's what this Tory government is trying to do. And the hypocrisy of it all is absolutely outstanding. Do you remember the P&O strike about a year ago? That was the employer broke the law. There was no consultation with those workers. They removed them by force from the boats, and they got away with it scot-free. That cannot happen this time in terms of what we're trying to do. It's like the thresholds they introduced. By the way, what's shown by the trade union being alive and kicking, many of these trade unions absolutely massacred the 50% threshold. Some had 90% turnouts, 90% in favour of industrial action. But if they applied those principles, 50% threshold to politics, you wouldn't have many MPs elected. 30% of MPs wouldn't pass the 50% threshold. 70% of councillors wouldn't pass the threshold, and in the case of police commissioners, well, none of them, not one bugger, would be actually past the threshold. The person who was elected, can't remember their name, from Gwent, was elected, wait for this, on a turnout of 3%. And they tell us that 50% is the minimum in terms of the trade union movement. That sticking hypocrisy is not going to be there. It's not a barrier we're going to put up with in the next moment of time. To finish, comrades, we've got a long way to go. We need to be bold what we want to do. We want to begin to build a movement. A movement's going to actually in favour of working class people, and we want a movement that's going to defend it, and I'm not sure Starmer's going to do that. We want a movement that's going to defend it with the same vigour the Tories defend their own class. Comrades, this is the May Day rally. It's always been a signal of what we've achieved in the past. Now it must become a signpost what we want to do as a trade union movement in the future. To build a trade union movement to transform society in a way that represents us. And then a society that's going to represent the millions, not the millionaires. Thanks very much.
Hooray!